Hey,
Love
Mike,
your
how
show.
are you?
Pretty good.
Thanks.
Couple questions for you about precious metals and another one related to the CFA talk you had a couple of weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are your thoughts about palladium, and what are the rules regarding bringing in or taking out bullion out of the country?
Well, I'm bullish on palladium, as a matter of fact, as I am on most of the metals. As far as the rules on taking gold and silver out of the country, there are no rules right now that prohibit that. I do believe, though, that if you're carrying, at least in monetary, if you're gold, if you're carrying $10,000 worth of gold, right? Not face value, obviously, but market value. So you got to disclose it, because the government would consider that money. You know, like if you have more than $10,000, you got to disclose it. But it's not illegal. So you can step into an airplane, you know, with $10 million worth of gold in a briefcase, and as long as you disclose that you got that $10 million worth of gold, then you know you're not doing anything wrong. You know?
You mentioned the Huey, so I'm kind of thinking, why not just stick with the real thing? Go with the permanent paper. Why go with the Huey?
Well, those are stocks. The Huey represents gold stocks.
Right. Why not just go with the real thing then?
Well, because when you buy gold stocks, you own the real thing, because the gold stocks own gold that's in the ground unmined. And the reason I want to own gold stocks is because they're operating businesses. They can generate a profit, and they're highly leveraged to the price of gold. Meaning, if the price of gold were to double from where it is right now, I would expect gold stocks to at least increase 3 to 5-fold, some maybe more, because of the impact that the doubling of the price of gold would have on their bottom lines, on their profits.
So that explains why they took the deeper dive on the late 08 drop of the gold. I see.
Yeah, well, they're going to go down more, but they're also less liquid in that respect, and you also have risk. There are gold stocks that went bankrupt because and these are generally the exploration companies that run out of money and they had debt, But there's different risks associated with owning gold stocks versus owning just bullion.
Do you think
I recommend both, but I.
Do you think the IMF is going to actually end up selling part of the gold that they have? Is that something that's going to happen?
I hope so. I mean, I don't like the IMF, and so I just assume see them go broke. And if they sell all their gold, then they won't be able to have any influence because they won't have any money. But, to the extent that the IMF is dumb enough to sell their gold, there are plenty of people smart enough to buy it. I don't think it's going to have that big a depressant on the price of gold. And I say, look, the Chinese recently announced that they had been secretly accumulating more gold and that now they have doubled their gold as a percentage of their reserves from 2% to 4%. Now, 4% of reserves in gold is still very small, but the fact that they've doubled it says something, and I'm sure they're not going to stop at 4%. I'm sure they want to own a lot more gold than they have, and they'll be happy to buy whatever the IMF wants to sell.
Last question about the CFA. I know you had to talk to these guys down there in Florida, and I've seen in Bloomberg today they're saying like 125 people are applying to get the CFA certificate. And I was kind of wondering, don't you think this whole model of the CFA kind of went bankrupt with this last crash? I mean, these old people that ran this show over there and ran the crash, they're all CFA certified, and all the ethical part of it obviously didn't work. So, is that thing still a valid organization?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the CFA, it's still, for people that don't know, it's Certified Financial Analyst, and a lot of people who work in my industry, in the brokerage industry, get a CFA degree, which has to do with, learning how to really read balance sheets and income statements and understand, corporate filings and finance. Most of the analysts that I have working for me at Europe Pacific Capital have CFA degrees. And I think, I think it's more valuable for somebody than, let's say, an MBA as far as learning how to read balance sheets and learning how to understand companies and look at companies. Obviously, a lot of people made mistakes in 2006 and 7 and 8 with respect to looking at the financials, not just the CFAs. A lot of people misunderstood the leverage there and misunderstood the U.S. economy and what was going on. I don't think it was necessarily the fault of that organization, just because their members didn't figure this stuff out. But hopefully, people have learned from their mistakes. But anyway, thanks for the call, Mike. Hey, before I take the next call, I forgot. I wanted to mention a lot of people I know have mentioned to me in the past, about Facebook or things of that nature, and why aren't I doing anything on these social networking sites? So what I've done recently is I've taken over one of the Peter Schiff fan pages on Facebook. I know there's a few of them. One of them, the Peter Schiff Fan Club, looks like it's got over 3,000 people on it. But the one that I've taken over has, I think, 1,800 members. It's just Peter Schiff. It's a fan site. I think it says it's listed as critic. But if you search my name, Peter Schiff, for those of you on Facebook, and you'll see one with about 1,800 fans. I've taken over the administration of that site. So if people want to join it or get on that site, that is actually going to be my site. I don't know exactly when I'm going to start, actually communicating or what I'm going to do with that site. But I know people, there are a lot of sites, and, I go and look at them sometimes, and, maybe people think they're communicating with me because they think they're my sites. None of the sites were mine. None of the sites on MySpace or any of these sites. I did put up something on Twitter. I have my name on Twitter. I think initially somebody else had my name, and I think I took that over as well. But I've never tweeted or whatever you do. And I know people have signed up on the site to follow me on Twitter, but there's really nothing to follow yet because I haven't actually started tweeting or whatever it is you're supposed to do there. And I don't know if I ever will, but I am setting it up. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with Facebook. I know a lot of people are on it, and I might try to find a way to utilize it somehow. But anyway, that site is there. That Peter Schiff fan site will be my site. And so if anybody wants to do anything with that information, if they want to friend it or whatever it is you do, then go ahead. Anyway, let me go to Mark in British Columbia.
Hi,
Mark,
Peter.
Hey,
I just want pretty good. I want to start by saying thank you for being an honest voice of reason and common sense in this world of spin that we seem to live in sometimes. As you know, I live in Whistler, British Columbia. It's a world-class ski resort. We're going to be hosting the 2010 Olympics next February. Now, we've obviously seen a drop in tourism, especially American tourists. That's our bread and butter. That's been making this town very successful for the last several years. I just want to get what your view or your ideas are on the future of tourism industry, demographics, who's going to be traveling in the next years to come, given this recession. What do you see the exchange rates between Canada and U.S. being? Yeah. And going even deeper, Fortress Investment Group, which owns IntraWest, which operates Whistler Blackcomb, lots of rumors there about them being insolvent, the whole real estate model being developing real estate to finance all the ski operations. What's your view on that end of the industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of funds that are going to be insolvent, and to the extent that the people who own Whistler need to sell Whistler, then somebody probably will get a good deal when they buy it. I don't think they're going to shut down the ski resort. People will be skiing. But potentially the people who own the resort are too leveraged, and so somebody will buy it who's not. But as far as what's going to happen in traveling, I mean, it's obvious to me that Americans are going to travel a lot less. I mean, Americans are just not going to have the wealth. Americans are going to be saving their money. They're going to be taking their vacations more at home. Now, to the extent that Americans do travel, maybe they'll travel to Canada as opposed to Europe or someplace more expensive or harder to get to. But I, in general, would say that inbound tourism from Americans to Canada will decline. I expect more Canadians to travel in the United States. I expect a lot of Canadians to make the trip south of the border for all sorts of reasons, because I think the Canadian dollar is going to rise against the U.S. dollar. I think it's going to rise considerably over time. I think that's going to make vacationing in America a lot less expensive for Canadians, so Canadians are going to come down. I mentioned I was up in Canada yesterday. I was in New Brunswick speaking at a conference there, and mentioned that I thought a lot of Canadians would end up owning winter homes down in Florida. A lot of the condos that we built, I think, are going to end up owned by Canadians because they're going to be very, very inexpensive for Canadians. But I still think there'll be inbound tourists coming to Canada. I just think more of them might be coming from Asia. The Asians, the Japanese, the Chinese. I mean, I think there'll be a lot of traveling, maybe more Europeans. There still will be tourism coming into Canada. I think that, Whistler is, as you said, a world-class place to ski.